Ka tangi hoki ahau, ti he mori ora. Ka mihi ki na maunga tapo o tene wahi. E tapara nei I a tato katoa. Ka mihi hoki ki na mana whenua. Koto I pupuri ana I te mana o tene wahi. Tēnā koto. Nō reira, e na mana, e na reo, e na karangatanga maha, tēnā koto, kua tai mai nei, ki te tōtoku I pene ko papapaki hirihira. Ka nui te koa, ka piri tahi tātou, I raro I te tua nui o tēnei whale. Nei rā te mihi atu ki a koto katoa. Tēnei te mihi atu ki a koe. E te mare I kura, e te hoa, e Jemaima. Me mihi ka tike ki a koe, moto tuhe ahorongi. Ko eke koe, ki na taumata tike rawa o te whare wananga. Ka ore e a rika na mihi ki a koe. Tēnei te tū ake ki te whakawaha I nā whakaro. O te kura tangata, ka mutu, o tātou waipapa tamatarau. Ahakoa, nā tairo a kupe, kua tutuki nā mahi, whakapōkaha. Ka poho, kereru mātou I a koe. Wai hoki, hei rā, hira tēne. Mō nā tāngata, no te moana nui a kiwa. Nō reira, huri no I tō tātou whale, tēnā koto, tēnā tātou katoa. Ka waiho, nā kōrero mō Dawn Freshwater, o tātou rangatira o Waipapa Tamatarau. Tēnā koe Dawn.
Tēnā koe, Greg. Kia ora tātou, ko Dawn Freshwater Takaingoa, I o rangi o Waipapa Tamatarau. No mai, haere mai. Welcome to the Fale Talofa, and really I have a very few words to say just by way of setting the scene for our Pro-Vice-Chancellor, Jemaima, who's here with us tonight to share not only her heritage and the mental health wellbeing heritage in academia Voyage of Resilience, but also to leave with us her legacy. And I wanted to say a few things first of all to you, Jemaima. So if we start with heritage, having supervised numerous PhD students myself, and being a long time ago, having done my own PhD, I know that all PhDs are personal. They are always telling you something about your history. And there is a motivation in our histories that drives us towards the particular subject matter and the topic that we focus on. That motivation is what maintains the dynamism, the energy, and the force to keep going at times when it becomes difficult. So I want to acknowledge the heritage. I also want to talk about the missing chapter for every PhD. There's always a missing chapter. And the missing chapter relates often to mental health and well-being, and the resilience of the researcher who's undertaking the PhD. Because the missing chapter is the chapter that we don't always read about in the final thesis of the internal work that's taken place throughout the time that we're undertaking the study, and the impact that that has on our own resilience, on your own well-being, and on your mental health. We know it's tough, it's a journey, but it's an important journey, and it's an important journey particularly in this context because of academia. because one of the things that we'll hear about is Jemaima's work in lifting and building research capacity and research capability in order to address some of that heritage that I've just mentioned and to really prepare the ground for her legacy. And I saw this firsthand when I recently visited Samoa. So I applaud you, Jemaima. We're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say, and I congratulate you on all that you've achieved so far and the legacy that you're going to leave as you keep treading those footprints ahead for people to follow behind. Kia ora.
Malu lovely soi fua mama langi e mama whaftaile a whiwhio mai matala mai o a au o maulunga i le nei whamoe malo le foi malo le fōlamonia malo le lei kia rana tātou katoa toa whakalofa lahi atu ni sampule venaka malo ni whakatalofa atu aloha no ia Maori Halo Alaketa, Oangwe, Kia ora koutou and warmest Pacific greetings. I would like to acknowledge the mana whenua of this place that we stand upon and our Fale Pasifika rests. Ngāti whātua o rākei, ngā mihi nui koutou for your embrace. And thank you all for supporting me the way you do. Greg. Thank you, Dean, for the Faculty of Arts, Professor Greg Booth, or Papa Greg, coined by some of your Pacific colleagues, and the Faculty of Arts for hosting this event and for being unswerving in your support for all things Pacific. And I can attest that we are all so truly grateful. And acknowledging also Professor Robert Greenberg, the former Dean of Arts, also a solid supporter of Things Pacific and of the Wānanga or Waipapa School of Māori Studies and Pacific Studies. And to you, our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Dawn Freshwater, for captaining this vessel we know as Waipapa Taumataro, the University of Auckland. Thank you both for your leadership, your guidance, and for helping to nurture the growth and the clearing of pathways for our Pacific students and staff. I count it all joy and such a privilege to work alongside you both. Whawhitai te le lava. Oh, I don't even know where I'm supposed to, where do I put this thing? Thank you. Tilo, I will be presenting a very brief and almost surface ancestral recollection. However, for the sake of time, I'll touch on some key points and in around one particular lineage in my family's history. But before I do so, can I ask all those in the whale tonight who are related to me to stand and make yourselves known? Can you please stand, my family? See, people, it has taken a village to support my career. Whawhitai te le lava, I love you all. Tā whaiwha tupua Fuiawa Lili was a king and the first of the Tupua lineage and the only key figure to carry the sole name of Tupua. The title, Tupua Tamasese, more commonly used today, is one of 4 paramount chiefly titles of Samoa, known as the Tama Ainga, which I won't delve deep into, but it is the titular head of one of Samoa's 2 main royal families, Sā Maliatoa and Sā Tupua. Sā Tupua being the lineage of Queen Salamasina. Now, tui a ana okay, which you'll figure it out. Now tui, a ana tui atua tupu tamasese Titimaya was a war hero. He's the one with the ula. Was a war hero, revered amongst his followers, and again, without providing an in-depth backstory, restored the prestige of Queen Salamasina. So all subsequent Tupua title holders carried and continue to carry the two names jointly as Tupua Tamasese. Tui a ana tui atua Tupua Tamasese Titimaya, with the headdress, joined in union with Fuatino Le Finiali Taimale, and they had a son, Tupua Tamasese Le Lufi I, with the headdress, born around 1855 in Vaimoso, Samoa. There were other children, but for the purpose of this talanoa, I'm only presenting a brief. Tulo. Tupua Tamasese Le Lufi I travelled to Fale Pasifika and found and married Sipaya, my great-great-great-great-grandmother, I being her namesake and 5 generations deep. Sipaya is the daughter of Solia, a high chief in Falealupo, the Ainga family of the war goddess Nawhanua, in the orange image. Nawhanua, who has been most of my life my superhero. There is a sociological theory of the 5-generation rule. The 5-generation rule suggests that major cultural or societal changes often take up to 5 generations to fully take root and become the norm. Which brings us back to Sipaya and Tupua Tamasese Le Lufi I, 4 generations before me. They all did something so right. If I'm standing in front of you today, the most unlikely of people. So based on this theory, I consider that from me onwards, becoming a professor should be the norm. Now, Tupua Tamasese Le Lufi I and Sipaya had 2 children. My great-grandmother, Mea Tuwai Sālelologa Tamasese, the lady with the bun. Oh. And her brother, Tupua Tamasese Le Lufi Ana II. I visited Grandma's grave in Mangle Cemetery this past Father's Day to draw something from her, to be able to pull this lecture together. I never planned to preface my lecture with the introduction of my ancestors. I've kept that close. My grandma obviously came through and considered it necessary. Grandma Mea Tuwai married my great-grandfather in the red shirt, Masuing Malie Simi James Gave, a Samoan Frenchman who was known for his love of cigarettes and beers. I blame the French side. Jokes. He lived with us growing up. I played a lot of belé with him, or playing cards. And in all that time I'd known him, I never heard him utter one word of English. Hearty but precious moments. So at that time, for a few years, there were 4 generations under one roof in Avondale. And times were hard, but such a joy. To grow up with one's elders, with one's parents, grandparents and great-grandparents under one roof, it's such a blessing, and it's unparalleled. Grandma and Grandpa had 8 children, one being my granddad, Masuing Malie Siausi Vaialua Gavit, who married my nanny, Sorisa Siapai Gavit, ni Falaniko. I would always grease Granddad up to drop me off to uni, and I recall one particular ride where he gave me there are only 3 things I want you to do for me before I die. that lecture. I took a deep breath. He took a long inhale on a cigarette, like father, like son. He said, number 1, don't smoke. Number 2, marry a good Samoan man from a good family. Number 3, be the lawyer in the family. He crossed the veil and I fulfilled 0 of his wishes. Tried the smoking thing, tried law, but I just couldn't do the 8 a.m. lectures 3 times a week and sports every day of the week and church at Nawhanua PIC at Avondale. It just wasn't me. And well, got the Samoan person from a good Samoan family, but not exactly the gender Granddad had intended for me. My apologies, I digress. Okay, Nanny's father, Grandpa, Mawawa Falaniko, was a tufunga tatau, a master traditional tattooist, as well as a master builder. A couple of Catholic churches still stand today in Sālelologa and Savai, and through Nanny is where our Tongan ancestry stems. So bring it back to Tupua Tamasese I. He remarried. Her name is Vaigaga Asilaulu, and one of their sons is the infamous Tupua Tamasese Lelofio Ana III, a Mau leader. The Mau, labelled as a rebel group by colonial authorities, was formed by Samoans in the 1920s as a political movement calling for Samoa's independence from New Zealand rule, under the slogan, Samoa mo Samoa, Samoa for Samoans. The Mau was in response to the 1980 flu epidemic, also known as the Spanish flu, which devastated Samoa then under New Zealand administration. The virus was introduced in November 1918 when an infected ship, the SS Talune, docked in Apia. With no quarantine measures enforced, the flu quickly spread, resulting in the deaths of approximately 22% of Samoa's population, around 8,500 Samoans. This failing of New Zealand's administration to prevent the outbreak fueled resentment and ignited the independence movement of the Mau. Tamasese Lelofio Ana III, a Mau leader, was assassinated in a peaceful march by New Zealand soldiers in Samoa on December 28, 1929, and remembered to this day as Black Saturday. And that's the photo of him lying in state with some of the Mau. And in his dying moments, this leader declared, Samoa, file mupea, masio ototo nei, ta uvalea, aia aonga, loolo mo nei mea. My blood has been spilt for Samoa. I am proud to give it. Do not dream of avenging it. Thank you, Samoan person from a good Samoan family. My blood has been spilt for Samoa. I am proud to give it. Do not dream of avenging it, as it was spilt in peace. If I die, peace must be maintained at any price. It was also a time to remember the bond between Māori and Samoan leaders that helped shape strategies for contesting the violence of colonialism with non-violent resistance. In 2002, the then New Zealand Prime Minister Helen Clark apologised for unquarantined vessel and the killing of Mau members on Black Saturday. Today, bottom right-hand corner, The current holder of the Tupua Tamasese title is His Highness Tuiatua Tupua Tamasese Taisi, or Uncle T for most of us, a former head of state and former Prime Minister of Samoa, who is touted as one of our leading custodians of Indigenous knowledge. The Sa'o, or the head of our Tamasese Ainga, and the grandnephew of the powerhouse that is Tamasese Leolofi or Ana III, who was gunned down in the peaceful Mau movement march on Black Saturday. So 5 generations deep, I will now present to you A Voyage of Resilience, Navigating Mental Health, Wellbeing, Heritage and Academia. Apologies. Just a trigger warning. I will be discussing some content that may be disturbing or distressing. And please, if you're feeling some type of way, feel free to leave the room, go take some deep breaths outside, do some mindfulness. Demure, cutesy. And come in when you're ready. But there's a number there that you can access, 1737, 24 hours. And I'm sure there are some clinicians in the room should you need to chat. So, suicide. How did I get into it? When I was at Avondale College, I played a lot of basketball, and one of the players, a dear friend, killed herself. And it really impacted me. It impacted all of us. And I could never quite shake that. So moving on, I thought perhaps while I was at university, I might as well do a master's. And that was eventually published in a book, quite a controversial book at the time, Caught Between Cultures. And basically that book it was giving a platform for the young people's voices and just the oscillating in and between different identities and living in Aotearoa and being disconnected from the homeland. I then went on to pursue, then I had a bit of a break, came back and managed to get a Health Research Council funded PhD in Community Health in the School of Population Health. I think the head of school was here, Jude, somewhere. And then I returned sometime later and did a postdoc in Pacific Studies in the Faculty of Arts and have never left. Now my PhD looked at Samoan suicide youth, suicidal behaviours and protective factors. And whilst I could put up a whole heap of publications and high impact journals that most of you will never pick up, because I don't. What matters to me is research impact and what that means for our communities. And research impact is ensuring that we can see ourselves, even if it isn't a pamphlet. And here I have Leva. Their work is research informed, and I'm so blessed that they used that PhD to help inform the work that they do, and this pamphlet being one of them. I will send Leva an invoice. Later on, I was awarded a Health Research Council partnership grant, which I was able to look at Tongan youth suicide prevention, along with Aulula Leno and Dr. Edmund Feoko. And then, of course, it's important, you can't always have things in the English language. So we sought to get everything translated, and it's a resource that is based on social work expertise. These you can find on Levar's website. And then, of course, when you're in the suicide prevention field, you come across suicide postvention. And so I received a Wakahourua Māori and Pacific Suicide Prevention Grant. So what is suicide postvention? It's basically the people that are suicide bereaved after someone has died by suicide, and how we can support those who are still healing, those who are impacted by the trauma of the death of a loved one. In fact, suicide postvention was coined I've forgotten his name. A suicidologist, forgive me. And he believed that suicide prevention actually starts with suicide postvention, because those that are those that are bereaved by suicide have heightened risk, heightened anxiety, heightened, depressive symptoms. And so it was important to me then to see how we can better support Pacific communities to keep our babies alive, to keep adults alive, to keep our elderly alive. And from this work, we were invited to Tokyo, Japan, with Alyssa Puna from Pacific Studies, who's based in the Cook Islands now, along with Levar. It was a partnership, and we did a presentation, and I presented this work. And obviously at these conferences, you come across international experts in your field. And so I was invited then to contribute a chapter to the handbook International Handbook for Suicide Postvention. And this work, again, you can see another pamphlet, but it's the impact. And what's inside resonates with Pacific communities, and how best, say, victim support, or a counselling service, how best you can enter a home, for instance, or how you treat the body, how you treat your loved one, and how you talk with someone, how you approach the house, how you even deal with the scene. I've been to a few scenes of those who have died by suicide. And then because of that work, I was then appointed to the government's Mental Health and Addictions Inquiry in 2018. And this is when we handed our report over to David Clark, who doesn't have his bicycle this time. If you know, you know. Along with these amazing people, just amazing. And what we set out to do for about 8 or 9 months is just travel up and down the length of the country, just listening to people, all types of people that you can think of. So much hurt in this country, so much trauma in this country. And you carry that, and you feel helpless. And you question yourself and your profession. It's like, am I doing enough? And we presented our report with our 40 recommendations. 38 were accepted. One wasn't, that I was really gutted about, and that was to reducing suicide prevention in this country by 20%. And the government couldn't commit to that. Now, this same year, I think, I was invited, the university hosts a Raising the Bar event, amazing event. It's like this, in bars, local bars in town, and you give a talk about anything and everything. And it aired on RNZ, the recording, and I had to sit, and I came into my office, actually, my office just over there. I was by myself, no one was in, and I had to sit through the seven-minute tirade, a racist tirade left on my voicemail. And And I guess, you know, your career progression does not come without its challenges. And racism is real, racism is hard, and racism impacts the mental health and well-being of our students, of our staff, of most people that are sitting in this room tonight. And then I was invited to contribute this chapter in this handbook of critical whiteness, talking about racism in academia. I was in two minds, because it's not exactly, you know, it's not exactly a comfortable thing to write about or something to talk about. It can be quite triggering, actually. And I was invited by Professor Giorgio Ravulo, who was appointed Australia's first Pacific professor. And no word of lie, I was down here after work and I heard a knock on my door, and I opened the door and there he was. And I was like, what? We just stood there fangirling and fanboying. And I thought, the ancestors, they hear me. And I think what's special to me about this chapter is that I was nervous to pass this on to my fellow leaders. I was nervous. Being the only brown woman in that tower. It's actually a beautiful tower. And they were so supportive. They still are. It's my middle table. Go and shake their hand, give them a hug. Strong allies. Oh, gosh, I thought my slides had finished by now. So ASHA, another Health Research Council funded project grant. Moving on from suicide post-vention, you naturally progress. And so I thought, well, you know, climate change, of course it's going to impact on people's overall mental health and well-being, and with the Pacific particularly vulnerable to the effects of climate change, it only made sense. And during that time, doing this study, you know, COVID hit, and so the borders were closed, premiers passed on, Cyclone Harold hit, impacted our ability to conduct our work on the ground in the Cook Islands, but thankfully we had Cook Islands-based researchers and Niue-based researchers, and I thought it was meant to happen for this project, because how else were we going to grow the capacity, the research capacity and capabilities of our Pasifika researchers? Some findings have been published. However, taking it back to the people is the best impact. And we're still in dissemination mode. I'm sure you can forgive me because I have other roles as well. But I did want to point to one finding, especially solastalgia, coined by Glenn Albrecht, a philosopher, Australian, who wrote about this psychological concepts in rural Australia, mining areas. And it was to describe the distress and psychological loss and damage when you see things change, your environment change on ancestral land. And I thought, well, I want to test this. I want to test this with Pacific communities. Because it was a way of reconfiguring the narrative, the dominant narrative. Our global South voices, our Pasifika voices in the climate change space need to be loud. The voices of Pacific are front and centre of all the research that I do. And it's great because it was Pacific-led. That's the aim, right, Frank? To grow Pacific research capacity and capabilities. And then, of course, from there, it started gaining some traction and people were noticing the voices. And so I was invited to join this Imperial London College Wellcome Trust funded project, global project around climate change and mental health. And you can see the regions that were covered, it's vast. And I was a co-convener for Oceania. And what spilled out from that is we've developed or produced a global research and action agenda for climate change and mental health. And these are my colleagues, some of them from Oceania in partnership with the University of Queensland. So in a coconut shell, back to suicide again, back to where it all started. How do we fare? Still, Māori are more likely to die by suicide than non-Māori, although the latest data shows a slight decrease. The rate of Māori is still higher than other ethnicities. In the year to June 2023, the rate for Māori was 15.8 per 100,000, 3 times the rates for Asian and Pacific populations. Chief Coroner reported that there had been a significant reduction in the rates for Pacific, which is now 5.1 per 100,000 people, down from 9.2 for the previous year. I'd like to think maybe my work did have a little bit to do, a little bit. I'll take it. I'll take it if it saves one life. If it saves a life, I'll take it. And obviously the work that all our Pacific NGOs do, Whakatautua, Whono, Benina Trust, I don't want to miss anyone out and they all sound Auckland based. I apologise. However promising, the mental health, wellbeing and addictions for both Māori and Pacific has a long way to go. Remember the 5-generation rule I spoke about? What we do positively now will impact generations that follow. But why wait 5 generations? Thank you. As I said, it takes a village. These people that you see on the screen have all helped me on my research journey, every single one of them. Professor Greenberg, Professor Linda Nikora, Dame Te Wela Percival, Professor Damon Thalessa, Professor Shanti Amaratunga. Where are you, Shanti? Lita Foleaki, Sir Colin Tukuitonga, Metua Bays, Sir Mason Jury, Pauline Taufa, Professor Janet Vanslow, Siale Alo Foleaki, Professor Paparangi Reid, the late Sitaleki Finau, Malia Hamani, Reverends Margaret Martin, Bibi Sorensen, Professor Yvonne Underhill-Sim, and Moira Grace, who started the research journey for me because she showed me the way to HRC and they provided me with a scholarship. If I didn't have a scholarship, there's no way I'd be standing here before you tonight. I'm nearly. My Office of the Pro-Vice-Chancellor Pacific, at the top there, to the left, in the middle, my Pacific Studies Ainga, all of them. and my UEC crew at the bottom with one of our favourite numbers. First prize to who can guess what 23 is. Michael Jordan. Couldn't do a speech without mentioning Michael Jordan. So, I'm getting there, folks. What does being promoted to professor mean to me? What does this inaugural lecture mean to me? Oops. As you can see, with everyone in this Fale tonight, it really does take a village. It is humbling to live, breathe, and walk in the light of true tautua, service. This is the reciprocal nature of my people, the giving back and the paying forward, the dream that our ancestors envisaged and our descendants can be proud of. So I'll leave it there. Again, you can access 1737. Soifua maia manuia.
Jemaima, on behalf of everyone here, we just want to say we love your work, we love you, and we've really learned in lots of ways from the journeys you've taken. Just a brief introduction, I'm Professor Yvonne Underhill-Sem. I'm delighted to just take this little role as MC at this moment to ensure that our Professor of Pacific Studies is embraced by Pacific Studies, which is just across the room, and our staff are here. So just to begin that, one of the things, Maima, that you mentioned was the students that you work with and inspire in so many ways. So I'd like to invite one of our PhD students to come and on behalf of the other students just share a few words of the impact, as you've spoken about, of your work for them. So we have Zoe Henry, who's in the last few months of her PhD, and she is going to speak on behalf of her colleagues and students.
There's a lot of people. Yeah, you're right. Tēnā koutou katoa, whakalawhalai atu ki matoloasi. My name is Zoe, and I have the honour and pleasure of representing our Pacific student communities that our Professor Jemaima Tiatia-Siau has and continues to serve. I want to acknowledge first your beautiful whānau. Thank you for lovingly sharing her with us. You have instilled in her the deepest dreams of education and community. Mema, you are our ancestors' greatest dreams, and your lecture tonight reminds us of the importance of our whakapapa in a place that doesn't always see all of us. I first met Mema prior to making the move from history to Pacific Studies. This move was really difficult and it was anchored with lots of feelings of imposter syndrome, and I really wanted to earn my place in the Fale. When I shared this with her, in her perfect Mema, hearty, Sagittarius fierce type of way, if you know, you know, there's some students at the back that are nodding with me, I see you. She eyed me out, and I thought she might actually step me out. She didn't, but she told me that was BS, and that if I felt this way as a potential PhD student, that there would certainly be a number of Pacific students who felt that way about their Fale and about their space on campus. She reminded me and the rest of us that we had a responsibility to look beyond ourselves, to deal with our insecurities by building into and with our communities. She taught us that we had a responsibility to move forward, not alone, but to bring our students and communities with us, always, period. So Meima, on behalf of our Pacific student communities here in the Fale, and I'm going to take a minute, can I get you guys to stand up with me real quick? If you're a Pacific Studies student or you're a Pacific student in here, please stand up. That has been taught by Meima, that knows Meima, that has been harassed by Meima. No, I'm kidding. Please stand up, please stand with me. This is just some of us that are here in the Fale. Not all of us are here. But we want to thank you, Meima, for your service and your leadership. Thank you for teaching us that care and responsibility for our communities doesn't just start with an ethics application and end with a journal article. Thank you for always thinking of us and championing us in places and spaces where it's only you at the table. And mostly, thank you for getting rid of the table and rolling out the Fale instead. We are so proud of you, Professor, and we are ready, and we can't wait to see where you lead us next. Kia ora.
Whakalawhalahi atu. Zoe was only invited to do this about an hour ago, so you can see the skills she has, and I know that a lot of it comes from her mentorship. There's not much more I want to say. Pacific Studies, and there are some staff here. I do want to say that this is the very first time that we have had a member of Pacific Studies be promoted to a Professor of Pacific Studies. And so, in partnership with our family next door, our wānanga, we are always grateful for the fertility that comes from being close on this land with Te Wānanga o Waipapa and Jemaima. I think that your journey and the generations that you bring with you have really sowed some really more fertile seeds for us to grow. So without any further ado, I think really I'd love to see family. I know that there's a wonderful uncle here, Uncle Siasa, who would like to speak on behalf of his family and Jemaima's family. So Uncle Siose, could I invite you?
Talofa lava, everybody. It's okay to say talofa lava back. Talofa lava, everybody. The last time our family was here was another amazing event, and that was when Meima took up this new position as Vice-Chancellor Pacific, and it was in this amazing Fale. Our family contingent isn't as big, but boy, we punch well, and even in smaller numbers. I'm just going to take a few minutes just to thank everybody in this room, but I'm going to, rudely refer to my phone, because when you get to my age, you forget where you park the car downstairs sometimes. You know? Thank you, Professor Greg. Just want to remember the passing of Kingi Tuheitia Potatau, Te Whero, and in the same breath, acknowledge the new dawn. Ngā waihono I te pōpaki. Can we have a round of applause, please, for the new queen? Yeah, Aotearoa was very excited about this news. Mā lore soi fua ma le langi e mama. I'm honoured to give thanks to all who are part of the journey for Jemaima. I e Meima. Meima. Thus far. The current Ihorangi Vice-Chancellor, Waipapa Taumatarau, Professor Dawn Freshwater, Prof. Tai Tere Lover, for your confidence aroha, support, and daringness, if there's such a word, to take on this amazing young wahine toa to the position of Pro Vice-Chancellor Pacific. Whawhtai lava to you and those ihorangi who have been a part of Maima's journey even before you were here. Whawhtai tere lava. Professor Greg Booth, we're cousins from another mother, who was the last representative of the arts faculty in the position of Dean of Arts before the merger. I have fond memories of Professor Greg and what you have done for Maima in the time that she's been with the faculty. Whawhtai tere lava, Professor Greg, for your commitment, your afi and your alofa of Maima. Professor Yvonne Underhill, Sam, thank you. With your time with Maima in the Centre of Pacific Studies, and recently as well, Associate Professor Lisa Puresa, kia orana meitaki. Whawhtai lava to the countless number of people at Waipapa Taumata Rau, and the Centre for the Centre for Pacific Studies that Maima's had influence over. And there are many, many people outside of this room that have engaged with Maima and that have been influenced mostly positively by Jemaima's interaction and engagement. Whawhtai tere lava to everyone who took the time out to attend tonight. To say we really appreciate you is absolutely an understatement, and I can tell you a little bit more about what her nanny said to me tonight before coming here. So realising how incredible she can be, unapologetically Samoan, I'm tripping up like you are, and holding that power because of where she has come from and her direction thus far. Whawhtai tere lava for the opportunity that the University of Auckland, Waipapa Taumata Rau, has given Maima. Whawhtai tere lava for her late grandfather, Masuinga Marie Si Osi Vailua, her late father Toilolo Papu, her mother Joyce, Angelu, her sisters Mary and Fola, uncles and nieces, her nephews and uncles and aunties, her nephews and nieces. I bring thanks from all of them that represent Maima's purpose. Her ainga is her purpose. Her ainga is her purpose. And in your own words, quoted tonight, you are the parents' and grandparents' wildest dreams. The dream that our ancestors envisaged and our descendants can be proud of. And that's Maima's vision. From her nanny, Suresa, my mother who is at 97 years young now, and who still prays for all her children and moko without fail, every day, more than once, every day, without fail, and reads her Tusi Paia faithfully every day. She sends both her alofa to Maima and her heartfelt thanks to all in this room and beyond these walls, those who are not physically present, for the journey thus far. I explained to Nanny, to Mum, to her about a little bit about the detail of what's happening tonight. Memory gets a bit sketchy nowadays at 97. Here's what she had to say, really briefly. To my dear Maima, man, I think I did this last time. To my dear Maima, I love you so much. I'm so proud of you. So sorry I can't be there with you tonight, but my words I can leave with you. Wha moli moli. Give my love and thanks to everyone in the Fale tonight for helping you on your journey. Professor Jemaima, you carry us with you now and always. Remember, God is with us and will never leave us. Alofa atu neni. So just finally, there are people in this room, my wife Tafaunga and my sister Joyce, Maima's mother, who go beyond the pamphlet that Jemaima was talking about and who put into practice work around self-harm and people who take their own lives. And we are impacted because we work with youth now, Pasifika youth mainly, but we work with youth now. And we've had 4 cases already this year. And the impact of one case of suicide is just huge. And so we rely on research because I say to my colleagues, I've got a niece who kind of knows what she's talking about in that area, especially around postvention. And so we help to support people who have been affected by suicide. So I just wanted to leave that with you to say that it goes well beyond the academic articles and all those sorts of things and the teachings that she's been able to be privileged to in terms of our Pacific students in the room. And so with that, I'm just going to say finally a big, huge thank you for Jemaima for your work so far. And we will just continue to see you rise and rise and rise. And you go with us, you will not go alone. Lava.
Malo, Wakalofalahi atu, thank you for those words, and I just want to thank Maima's family, the ones who are here, and all those we know who are not here, and all those who have passed. We're coming to the end of the session, and Maima, you can relax a little bit, and I think we're all looking forward to seeing the Maima we know who wants to move around comfortably without tissues and just enjoy our company. But we might have someone else who wants to say something, or she's just saying, no, let people go have a drink. But here she comes. Thank you. Let me just introduce another wonderful professor who was on the list as well, Professor Linda Nikora.
Tēnā koutou. See, the Vice-Chancellor has gone off to a finance meeting, I think. But tēnā koe, Vice-Chancellor, Deputy Vice-Chancellors, Deans, Head of Schools, students, and most certainly family, because tonight is all about family. But I did feel moved to stand up to speak a few truths about Jemaima. Nā reira, e taku teina, a tēnā koe. I met Jemaima about 30 years ago, somewhere in this precinct. We were called, gathered together by another researcher to come and sit together to talk about research methodologies. So I think we might have been sitting around a round table or something, and I was on one side. Jemaima was on the other side, and we were giving each other that Pacific look, you know, it's sort of like I slide left, trying to sort out what kind of person we were in terms of each other. And so my very, very brief encounters with Jemaima at that particular point in time, I kind of concluded she was surly, she was kind of like, don't get caught in a dark room with her. Said it like it was, and if you're talking shit, she'll call you out, and didn't have time for sitting around a table with a bunch of people sort of navel-gazing over what their research methodologies were all about in terms of doing research, because she had far more greater things to get on with. But one of the things that I took away from that particular meeting was an absolute dogged determination to pursue those goals that she had set for herself. Absolute dogged determination. And these were not small goals, you know, to change the landscape in terms of suicide in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and the Pacific, and wherever a Pacific person was a big goal, continues to be a big goal. And I had fierce admiration for her in relation to that particular pursuit. So we kind of parted our ways and watched each other, I suspect, from a distance over many years. One of the other things that other people in the establishment have the privilege of, that Jemaima did not have the privilege of, was having to find her own salary. And she did that by going out writing her own research grants to not just pay for her own salary, but to actually pay for those of others, her students, her research assistants, and the like. Jemaima didn't come on board at this particular institution like other academics do, in terms of walking into a lecturer position and then all the supports of an institution kicking in. She came in via the hard route. And, you know, I have to say, she's the much better person for that, but it didn't have to be that way. Going back to the late 1980s, 1990s, when Jemaima was pursuing her PhD, her master's studies, postdoc, research, etc., she would have been at the forefront of people who had applied to the Health Research Council and was successful in terms of winning scholarships from that institution. So she was at the absolute forefront, the cutting edge of opening those doors for not just specific peoples, but for Māori peoples as well. I sit here, I'm still sitting and going, yeah, I'm jealous, in terms of that particular pathway. Since then, she's landed a job at the University of Auckland. And when I arrived at the University of Auckland, having been professored for some time, Jemaima was still, I think, a lecturer at that point in time. An absolute injustice in terms of the contribution that Jemaima made to community, to students, as well as the university. So it is with a really, really warm heart to see that circumstance changed and to feel somewhat relieved. Yes, it does take a village. It does take whānau with very, very long hands in terms of providing you with support, and that support comes in all kinds of different shapes and sizes. And I just reflect back on your tātai whakapapa, the beginning of your kōrero, and the strength that they bring to you and to all of us. And I know that there's some special people that are close to my heart who are at home and in Samoa who would be celebrating very much with you tonight. So that's tupua, the Tamasese household as well. So, e taku tuakana. A kua tai koe ki te tuakanatanga. Unfortunately, there are no more excuses. This is the buck stops, and at this stage of your career, I know that the best is yet to come. So, ka nui te mihi atu kia koe, totally proud. Best wishes from Emeritus Professor Ngāhui Taua Kōtuku, unable to be here with us tonight. Yeah, just stunning. Kia ora. Kia ora.
Well, the accolades will rightfully continue for some time to come, and as Linda said, not just in this house. So I just want to open up to see if anybody else would like to share some stories. And there's one right there. Come on up.
Not loud enough from here?
No, because it's live screened, Professor Selena Marsh, so we'll capture that as well.
Malole soifua ma malalangi e mama. I just want to represent Avondale. I just want to put out there, Avondale, two Samoan girls born and raised in Avondale, both with issues with Siusi Gavit. Avondale College students, first in family, full professors. Thank Leatua for the blessings, for our different paths. I'm so proud of you. Avondale, before it became part of Auckland CBD, when it was West Auckland, Avondale Heart, represent Whawhitaiti Lava.
So we've got Avondale. Do we have any other takers for an expression of how much Jemaima's becoming a professor has meant to them? Well, I know there's one more expression that's going to come, and that's going to be after I wrap up these formalities and thank Maima for your presentation and for your journey and for sharing that, and for everyone who was here, who's taken the time to be here, to the family, to the students, to our staff, and to everybody that's here. There will be some food served after we finish this next little expression of, what would you call it? Embodiment, one of my colleagues would say. Embodied practice is what we do in Pacific Studies. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here. And as we close this up now, we just have another event, another expression that we're going to enjoy. So I'll say goodbye for now, and we'll come back and bless the food in a moment after we've had this little other expression. Cue. Take your shoes off, people. Take those shoes off, Linda.